So I think that we are literally built at the level of our brain to be able to perceive and engage the guidance in and through synchronicity as part of a deeper relationship with God or whatever one's word may be. So as a scientist, I've for 20 plus years studied this innate human capacity. Every single one of us is gifted the day we're born. And as we look through the MRI machine, we see that there is literally a set of circuits in the brain that every one of us can engage by choice, through which we know that we are loved and held, guided, and never alone.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Going Out Looking In, the podcast about the big questions of life, personal growth, and spirituality. My name's Maxi, I'm your host, and I want to say thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you who attended last weekend's live podcast recording with Vince Sheffin in this very room where I'm sitting in right now. For all of you very attentive listeners and especially viewers of the show, you might notice that the room behind me looks still a little bit different, and that is because of the live event. And I'm still very much sort of going back and trying to wrap my head around what actually happened here. So much healing, so much presence, so much conversation around those deep topics and those important things that we are talking about here, especially my guests are sharing here. And I'm so proud of what we together have built. I just remember like a couple of months ago, I was going out with this little podcast recorder and I was sharing from the heart, going out, looking in, sharing from the inside what is alive within me. And now to have like a room full of people showing up, engaging so authentically and sharing what's present for them, what they want to know, what they're working on. Just wow. So thank you so much. I'm deeply inspired and also motivated to keep doing what I'm doing here and to keep pushing and to keep improving and to keep finding ways and opportunities for us to connect, really to connect and to exchange, because this is such an enriching spiral which elevates this whole podcast to a whole different dimension. Something that I, as a simple, like a sole individual, I can only do so much, but together we can do so much more and amazing things. So thank you. And now we just keep going. I mean, just like more amazing things coming, and this upcoming conversation today is just one of them. And what an opportunity. Wow. I'm so excited to speak to Lisa Miller, Dr. Lisa Miller, today. Now, Lisa is so many things. First and foremost, she's an amazing human being. And that shines through everything that she does, honestly. I mean, I listened to countless interviews and stuff like that in the preparation for this podcast, and I'm just really moved by how honest and authentic and vulnerable she is with everything that she does, while at the same time doing so many incredible things in her professional career. And now I have my list here and I'm walking you guys through it because it's just simply incredible. So, Dr. Lisa Miller, she is a New York Times best-selling author of her book, The Spiritual Child. She's also the author of her new book, The Awakened Brain, which we talked about very thoroughly also in this interview. She's a professor in the clinical psychology program at the Teachers College of Columbia University. She's the founder and director of the Spirituality Mind-Body Institute, which is the first Ivy League graduate program and research institute in spirituality and psychology. How amazing is that? She has over a decade of joint appointments in the Department of Psychiatry at Columbia University Medical School, and her research has been published in more than 100 peer-reviewed articles in all of the leading journals of the scientific landscape. And that is just an excerpt of Lisa's vita. And so I'm very, very humbled and grateful that she decided to join the podcast, and we explored so many interesting and inspiring topics. One of them being synchronicity. You know I love some synchronicity, so we went deep into how we can live and flow with synchronicity through life, be guided by it. We talked about Lisa's very personal and professional journey, which was also guided by synchronicity. We talked about the scientific evidence for spirituality in our brain. Amazing. Really amazing. So it's everything but woo-woo. This is science. Just amazing. We talked about the effects of a spiritual connection on our lives, on our health, on our healing, on all aspects of our human experience. We talked about cultivating and really developing a nourishing relationship between the heart and the mind, and how we can really have those two beautiful components work together. We also did actually 2 exercises, so get ready for that. We talked a lot about her book, The Awakened Brain. We talked about the importance of community. We talked about the power of love and the power of surrendering to this beautiful flow of life. So I'm very proud of this one. I'm very excited to share it with you. I want to say a massive thank you also to Lisa to coming on. And with all that being said, sit back, enjoy. Namaste. So, Lisa, it's an absolute honor to welcome you to the show, Going Out Looking In. You know, this is really like a full circle moment for me again. Behind me, the room, a lot of work has been done over the last couple of days here. A lot of healing work, beautiful conversations. Now sitting down, talking to you. Another such beautiful opportunity to talk about, you know, the big questions of life, spirituality, and the very unique standpoint and experience that you bring to this topic, which is very different from the people that I talk to on this podcast. And so I'm very honored, I'm excited, I'm grateful to have you on. Thank you.
Roxy, I'm so delighted to connect with you and share in conversation. And thank you for helping to create a place of learning, of opening, of awakening, and really walking the walk. I think that where we are in our culture right now is a renaissance. We've come out of a plague and we're ready for a renewal. And you're helping to shepherd that through your own being and words, and through convening and teaching and hosting people as they awaken in their own path. So thank you.
Oh, so nice. Yeah, thank you. I also gotta say, we briefly talked about it, like it's really for me also something that I don't see the topic always in the center of, like, you know, I don't want to talk only around a subject, but also like talk to the person behind it. And for you, that was also something in the preparation for this podcast with you, came up again and again, just like how much of like personal wisdom and how much you also walk the talk, you know, because like you have been guided by synchronicities along your way as well. And that is so beautiful. So maybe just as to warm up a little bit, I would love to explore a little bit like your experience and your journey with synchronicity, and maybe connect the connections between the synchronistic and the divine guidance that you have experienced with your career path and your everything that led you to write books like The Awakened Brain.
So Maxi, I share in The Awakened Brain that for 5 years, my husband and I were struggling to start a family, and there was no medical explanation. We were both checked out by doctors. There was no reason why we were not conceiving, but time after time, we so dearly wanted to become parents. We were in our 30s, and no child was conceived. And we'd take a vacation. We'd go to the Caribbean. No baby. We'd go to Sedona, spiritual places, no baby. And it started to dawn on me almost sort of like a haunting, creepy feeling up from behind, just sort of almost this unspeakable, oh no, what if we can't conceive? And that was very, very depressing for myself, and even more so for my husband. I mean, there was a time where in the middle of the night, I looked over and I didn't see him, and he'd rolled down onto the floor, and he was lying there, arms out. And I'm like, honey, are you okay? And he says, our lives are hollow and meaningless without children. So nothing else mattered. We had the jobs we wanted. We had the friends that we adored. Nothing else mattered.
Wow.
So
Incredible. Yeah.
we then started paying attention. We started paying attention to the really remarkable synchronicities that showed up in our path. And one of them was after about 11 in vitros. My husband, in very sweet, loyal, in solidarity, is lying on bed rest next to me. And this is after having been to the team that I'd researched and discovered had even invented in vitro using sea urchin. I mean, couldn't get a better doctor. There we were, and I just had this terrible, creepy feeling that somehow, despite really finding the best docs, we were chasing this in the wrong direction. Something was off. And I couldn't put my finger on what, but I knew that somehow I was in the wrong office for what we were seeking, which was parenthood. Sure enough, lying there on bed rest, treated ourselves in this kind of bleak moment. We treated ourselves to a very nice hotel. I click the remote to watch the telly. What comes on but one station? And we're like, oh, we don't want to watch this. And so my husband clicks it, but it won't move. And he sort of bangs it on the bedstand. There is one show, and it is for 4 hours, an interminably painful interview. Pans to a little boy living in a garbage dump. Through the translator, this little orphan says, I don't care that I live here in this trash dump. I don't care that I can't go to school. But it hurts so much to not be loved that I sniff glue to make the pain go away. And I thought, we have been chasing in vitros. We have been researching the best docs. And my husband looked at me to be the one to say it first. There is a child out there for us. And once we got the picture through this synchronicity, through this stuck, interminable 4-hour painful documentary, we started to shift our awareness and start thinking, wait a minute, what is parenting really? Is it that the child has, my husband's good looks and, my humor? Or is it that the child, is one in deepest love and commitment bonded to our heart? And that was a real shift. And from that came more synchronicities. So for instance, I'm, starting to think, wow, there is a child out there for us. And I'm on a bus. I'm traveling down Broadway on my way to Columbia. And this gentleman gets on, I'm still quite depressed for this failed in vitro. This gentleman gets on the bus. I'm hoping, because I'm not feeling so hot, that he's not going to sit near me. He walks past the first 10 open seats. He walks by the next 10 open seats and plops down immediately next to me. And this is how synchronicities roll. They are often irritating at first. They're a perturbation of how we planned to conduct from command control. And he was an unusual gentleman. He leaned way over into my face and said, "Hey, lady, you look like just that type of real nice lady that would go all around the world adopting kids." And got off at the next bus stop. I haven't seen him since. No one's ever said that on a bus or subway or anywhere else, the plane before. So that is the type of extraordinary confluence that is far too unprobabilistic to have happened by chance. I mean, I've ridden, gone up to Columbia 10 years before that, 20 years since, never. And I almost wonder, how were we brought together? And how was it that he went one stop on a bus? No one goes one stop on a bus. You walk a stop on the bus. He was perfectly, abled. And so it only makes sense to think of synchronicity as emanating from, if you will, a very knowing guiding source, a loving guiding source. And we're all agents, if you will, like raised from the sun of this great source, who I call God. My word is God, but people have different words, universe, spirit, some say Jesus or Hashem, Allah. But what I've seen is that the synchronicities, when we listen and pay attention, are guidance that not only, it's not like a symbolic guidance that we would read in a book or see in a painting. It is a living symbol, a synchronicity. It is a moment of relationship into which we say, yes, pay attention if we choose. And then if we walk on that guided path, it is almost like a wormhole between universes. We have an entirely different field of life before us. I mean, literally, who turns around the corner, the next moment changes. So it is outside of our mechanistic narrow control. Life's about 2% control. We can choose if we brush our teeth. We can choose if we push the elevator button, but we have no say in who's on the elevator, if it comes in 10 seconds or 10 minutes. 2%, we can do a little. But what that 2% can be is a deep, dynamic, really dance with who I call God, the universe. What are you showing me now? And if I say yes, wow, what on earth is going to come around the corner?
Wow, so beautiful and so like strong, and like you just cannot not see it then. And at the same time, what I wanted to ask as a follow-up is basically, what is your experience with, because you said at the beginning, you and your husband, you started opening up, like something shifted. And so it goes along the lines of, because I love Bible teachings, and so like, let those with ears hear and with eyes see. And so do you have the feeling like inside of you, this is like a necessity to be sort of like receptive and open to the synchronicities, or are they like happening all the time with us noticing?
So I think that we are literally built at the level of our brain to be able to perceive and engage the guidance in and through synchronicity as part of a deeper relationship with God, or whatever one's word may be. So as a scientist, I've for 20 plus years studied this innate human capacity. Every single one of us is gifted the day we're born. And as we look through the MRI machine, we see that there is literally a set of circuits in the brain that every one of us can engage by choice, through which we know that we are loved and held, guided, and never alone. So the synchronicity, the guidance, is part of the deep, living, dynamic relationship with God, and our neuro docking station, if you will, of this transcendent relationship is seen in people, whether we are Christian, Hindu, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, Jain, spiritual, but not religious. whatever faith tradition or spiritual and not religious, we all have this docking station. What it is, it's, if I might,
Yes,
it's
please.
three major components. And the first is just as we were loved and held as tiny children by our parent or grandparent, we know that we are loved and held. We feel that, and the bonding network comes up online. We feel that we are not alone. The parietal that puts in and out hard boundaries, that lets me know that I'm at this GPS coordinate and you're at the other GPS coordinate, at the same time releases boundaries, and we're part of one brotherhood and sisterhood, one family of life, one sacred field of life or living consciousness. And third, the guidance for the synchronicity. We go, to your point, Maxi, from a very narrow down, I've got to have it. I've got to get that baby. I really want that job. I want that new apartment. I want him, her, them to say yes. Got to have it. Top down dorsal to bottom up ventral attention network. And the world is re-illuminated. And many people say that new direction, the synchronicity, the guy on the bus, the child in the documentary on poverty, that experience pops. Loved and held, never alone, and we are guided. That's how we're built. And when we engage that seat of neuroperception, life unfolds in an exponentially more glorious way. And that doesn't mean we get what we want. In fact, we are so fortunate to not get what we want, because what we want is outdated the second we want it. What we want is based on today's information all the way back. It's a historical sort of estimate of what we think we want. But the catch and the catcher's mitt of a synchronicity, the deep felt guidance and loving direction of God, that has information that has yet to unfold. Certainly God has all that information, but our understanding of that information has yet to unfold. May we do a practice?
Yeah,
Beautiful.
of course.
Beautiful. Thank you, Maxi. This is about a 2-minute practice. I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes, clear out your inner space. I invite you to think of a time where you wanted something so badly. It could have been a job, it could have been a partner, it could have been admission to a school or promotion, an internship. You wanted something so bad. And you planned for it. A plus B plus C. You did your research. It was yours, that red door. You reached for the handle, but it was stuck and it made no sense. It didn't calculate because you had done A plus B plus C. And you were shocked. You may have been angry, maybe a time depressed, kicked the door. But only because that door was stuck. You had no choice. You turned 40, 120 degrees. 170 over there was a wide open, radiant yellow door. You may not have known of yellow doors or thought they even existed, never thought of yellow door, but it was wide open. You crossed the yellow door to a landscape that was more right for you. You met someone who made you feel alive. You took a job that you didn't realize could make you feel so at home. You did not get what you wanted. You got something better than what you wanted, and certainly more right for you. Now, as you think about that stuck red door and the hairpin turn leading to the wide open yellow door that has everything to do with who you are and where you are today, was there anyone at that hairpin turn? It could have been someone who for 3 minutes told you a story at the coffee shop or a party. Or it could have been a dear friend or grandparent who told you something they'd never shared before. Your trail angel gave you guidance, information, pointed in the direction of that yellow door. And as you think about the stuck red door, the hairpin turn, the trail angel, and the wide open yellow door that has everything to do with who you are and where you are today, how really are the most important dimensions of our lives realized? How does life unfold on big matters? Are we narrowly makers of our path, command control, or yes, we need planning and strategy, but ever greater? Are we actually discoverers of our journey? And stepping now finally way back. In your road of life, where is God? Where is your higher power? Whatever word and you, however you know your higher power. Is God in the open yellow door and the stuck red door? Is God in the trail angel and your open heart to be in dialogue and ask, what now is life showing me? What God are you revealing to me now? Where are you taking me? Have you perhaps been on a spiritual path all along? And when you're ready, I invite you back.
Woo! Wow, that took me back to an amazing time. So powerful. It's really what you said. It's often not what we want or what we imagined, based on the retrospect data of the very limited input that we have given the mind. That's how, and I would love to also maybe a little bit talk about that with you. I wrote down like the relationship between, the mind and the heart, and how that is, when it comes to spirituality, might be important, because for me, that is so, like Michael Singer is my teacher, like with The Untethered Soul and the Surrender Experiment, which is talking a lot about, letting go and surrendering to the flow of life and being guided by those synchronicities. And so when I was just like now going on the journey with you and you guided me through it, I was just reminded of a time when really wanted to check out. I really wanted to go completely off grid. I wanted to live in a Zen monastery and I wanted to just live there. That was my intention. And I went there, and then life turned completely upside down. I got to know my former boss there, who is living there partly. So she's going back and forth. And then out of that grew a very, like an incredible like work relationship then. And I didn't end up going basically to the monastery to live there, but I went back and forth to work there with her. And so I didn't get what I wanted in sort of my head, but I got something other and different, but still amazing. And so, yeah, like along the lines with what you said, and with what I love about also Michael Singer's teachings is also that when you look at like the experiences that have been sort of like put into us, you can only rely on the data that has been consumed, which is, in my case, 29 years of life experience, and just based on the tiny little bit of the universe that was basically taking place in front of me, which is minuscule. It's just like, what is that? Like in relation to the grand scheme of things, I don't know anything. However, my mind tells me I know a lot. I've read 20 books on spirituality. And so now, I know what's the right way and the right path for me. And then, like, yeah, life is just unfolding in ways where now, also really sharing from the heart for me right now, I'm going through a, like, situation with my partner right now. So we are, after 7 beautiful years of a beautiful relationship, decided to go a different way and turn this romantic partnership into a loving friendship. And so as I'm going through that right now, I am already sort of, for the first time in my life, trying to, not in hindsight, look at it and go, yeah, okay, Maxi, that was good for something and I can see it now. But as I'm going through, I want to embrace it. You know, as I'm going through, I want to say, I'm right now guided already. And so that was all of that was coming up when you when you were guiding me through that.
That's so
Yeah.
generous and beautiful, because as you share, we are all emanations of the sun. We are all beings of God, right? And so relationships are inherently spiritual events at every point. We come together, they have a beginning, a middle, an end of sorts, right? And then opening
Mm-hmm.
into their presence in our lives going forward from there. So to treat your going your own ways as friends with the same love and the same open heart and the same engagement with spirit as finding each other is truly a sacred act. Okay? It is absolutely moving and beautiful that each piece of the relationship. I think far too often in post-industrial global culture, we handle things relationally, but we don't engage at the deeper sacred level. And everything, every moment in a relationship is both interpersonal and spiritual. Those relationships are every moment a spiritual event. And that includes, the little ones. If I lose my cool at a coffee shop, I should go back and apologize to the guy. And it includes the big ones, our coming together and going our separate ways, our having children or not having children, our, all this is actually foundationally a spiritual journey. And we are all trail angels. So I honor as I witness your testimony to a sacred way of engaging relationships. What danger in this movement is that it becomes solipsistic, that it's introspective navel, that it's all about my great experiences. And then I come home and say, oh, you're not as enlightened as me. And that's not what you're doing. You are saying we are on a soul's path, and this is part of our journey right now with such respect and I thou.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you as well. Wow. Yeah. To be honest, like I wouldn't even be, I often said now as I'm navigating this, I'm thinking and I'm feeling, wow, where would I be right now if I hadn't done this work as well, and like just going through that and experiencing what I've experienced, because it just helps me so much. And I guess it's a perfect segue into something that I wanted to talk with you about anyway, which
And
is,
your experience
yeah, yeah,
applies to all people who are going their separate ways after a relationship. So I had an aunt who got divorced, and there's a script, there is a 20th century outdated script that to separate, you need to tear each other to shreds, that divorce is somehow about illegal, right? Dismembering of one
mm-hmm,
another.
yeah,
It's destruction. It's painful. What my aunt, the Buddhist nun, she became a Buddhist nun, did on
mm,
exiting was they were so frustrated in her case and so aggravated. And instead of tear each other apart and say, you never pulled your oar, and you're so short tempered and self centered, and instead of you couldn't laugh and all these things, they said, let's yell at each other what we really appreciated. Let's take all that energy, let's take all those feelings and say, I really appreciated that you would man the fort while I was out traveling. And I really appreciated that you were kind to our neighbors even when they were difficult. And I really appreciated that you have a funny sense of humor even when I'm dour. And they left in the best that they could, making each other more, not less. Right? What is our footprint?
mm,
And I'm not talking about the trash that we recycled or not. What is our spiritual footprint? Yeah, it includes environmental, of course, but to each other. Yeah. What you're
wow,
doing, what is our footprint? What is our spiritual footprint? And you're honoring your partner, and it sounds like your partner's honoring you. And this was a season, and 7 years is often 7, 8 years a season, and a season of growth, and a
mm,
season of discovery, and a season of sacred emergence. And thank you so much. And I think even a high school girl and boy, young girl and boy, can do that on breaking up. They could have gone a month and said, you know what? I'm so glad that you were my 10th grade boyfriend. This was a great year. And I'm so happy that you are a part of my whole life memory of 10th grade. Right? We can part on a big thank you and what was great and make each other more. That's a script. It's so easy to shift. It's so easy to shift if we see the possibility. And I think you're living and breathing that out in a very significant way for the community.
Mm, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying my best. But yeah, I have to say that I think I it's a big thing that helps me is to have developed this sort of relationship to my mind and to my ego, which is a very conversational, playful sort of dance, because like it has a lot to say about this, a lot. Like it has a lot to say about it, and most of it's not so nice things. And what kind of stuff like that I should be feeling and doing right now. And so if I was to give in to this, things I guess would not be as harmonious as they are right now. And so I guess if I put it in a question, is like, how do you think, how can we develop this sort of like loving relationship to the voice inside our head, or the ego, or however you want to call it?
And who are we really, right? In your sharing of this very human experience is a deep seat of being from which you share that is deeper than the, well, why don't we say the impish machinations of the head, right? um, there's a fellow I respect so much, Ilarion Merkuliev. He is the last living shaman of the Aleutian Islands. So off the coast of Alaska are some very, very tiny islands that continue on for miles called the Aleutian Islands. He's the last of his line. He comes and speaks for us at times at the Spirituality Mighty Institute. And he says with such clarity, in post-industrial culture, Western culture, we've got it turned upside down. We have the head guiding our way and then implementing the sentiments of the heart. I want this. I want to go there. I want more money. I want to be more famous. I want to have a bigger apartment. I want to be able to X, Y, and Z. And the heart becomes full of craving and envy, or endless on a treadmill ambition, right? We could take the same apparatus, we've got a head and a heart, and turn it around and let the heart guide us. The heart feels, I feel God's presence pulling me in a new direction. I love you as brother, as sister. My heart says every bit of life is abundant with love, and therefore the heart guides the head. How will I care for you, my partner, my brother, my friend? The heart guides the head. How will I take care of this earth in my job as a scientist, as a media voice, as a culture maker? So when the heart guides our direction and points to the star where we are headed, then the mind can build that rocket ship. The mind can be strategic because it is strategic towards a highest cause. And I don't mean a higher cause, I mean the highest cause, God's direction for us. It is tactically working to realize God's direction as told through our heart. That's an entirely different way of being, and it is immediately available to every one of us. That is where we are going as a culture in our new renaissance. Last 200 years was head pushing heart. And now it is time for heart pushing head. And leaders such as yourselves and contributors and communities built, such as that which you're helping to foster, are exactly the sort of new forest that's going to populate our world.
Oh, that's so beautiful and hopeful. And I have discovered that all throughout this preparation for the podcast and with other conversations you had. And I love that so much that you really put an emphasis on that sort of community aspect and how important that is for us as individuals to be able to grow and to nurture something that is like this, becoming this whole movement. And also for me, really, this is really helping me also to visualize, because like I'm still in this sort of phase of, and many people that I'm speaking to are in this sort of like discovery between the dance of the heart and the mind. And with you writing a book called The Awakened Brain and having conversations around it with people, it was also like, why did she choose brain? Interesting. With something like spiritually, where many people straight go to the heart or to like this area instead of this one. And so we had like a lot of conversations around this dance, what's the relationship between the two? And I think that was so, also for me, like I'm learning right now a lot, and it makes perfect sense, because I also don't want to make enemies with my mind. I want to use it in an aligned way to bring awesome stuff into the world. I mean, look what we can do with the mind. Great things.
Right.
So,
Well, it's a really important point, because there are passive circuits and regions of the brain that, when engaged, go hand in hand with the deep felt awareness of the heart. So that felt experience of the heart, that deep, certain knowing of love and guidance, that deep, profound intuition that is in the wisest, deep inner part of ourselves, has a neural correlate. There is a neurodocking station for that. So both the heart and the brain, as we know and feel this truth, have a neurodocking station in the apparatus, the brain. So I think it's very, very important in our movement to clarify that the mind is experienced as part of, the neurodocking station in the brain, and the heart is experienced as part of the neurodocking station in the brain. The brain is sort of the incarnate material landing pad for these experiences. So I am not a biological reductionist. I don't think, as was often assumed in the 20th century, that the brain somehow, like an assembly line, makes packages of thoughts. I don't get it confused with an auto plant or a refrigerator manufacturer. The brain is not a place only of production, although it can produce. The brain is also a place of reception. And sacred contemplative practices, prayer, have a neurodocking station. The knowing of the heart has a neurodocking station, which is receptive of sacred consciousness, we might say spirit. So quieting the brain is wonderful. Getting present is wonderful, so that we might then cross the threshold to receive, like a catch in the catcher's mitt, inspiration, guidance, a symbolic message, a voice of an ancestor, a voice from God. Right? So this is our birthright, that we are both creators in a sense, but we are really both receivers to then live out and give and care as directed. It is an extraordinary gift with which we've been endowed to live out and realize a sacred universe. Incredible gift. Actually, sometimes, it's interesting, Maxi, people will say, that sounds great. How do you do that? And there is a practice, if I might share one more practice, is that?
Yes, of course.
I always thank the teacher who gave me this practice, the late Dr. Gary Weaver, who gave this practice to me, and I've given it forward and for you to use in your own journey and share. Okay. This is a 90-second practice, and it has to do with opening the pipeline to a direct lived relationship, a transcendent relationship, opening the capacity for receptive embrace of transcendent guidance. I'll invite you to close your eyes and clear out your inner space. 5 breaths. I invite you in your inner chamber to set before you a table. This is your table, and to your table, you may invite anyone, living or deceased, who truly has your best interest in mind. Anyone, living or deceased, who truly has your best interest in mind. And with them all sitting there, ask them if they love you. And now you may invite your higher self, the part of you that is so much more than anything you may have or not have, anything you've done or not done, your true, eternal, higher self. And ask you if you love you. And now finally, you may embrace your higher power. Invite your higher power, whatever word is yours, and ask your higher power if they love you. And now with all of those people sitting here right now, what do they need to share? What do you need to know? What do they need to tell you now? And when you're ready, I'll invite you back.
Wow. Yeah. It's so clear, isn't it? It's so clear, isn't it?
And this birthright, no one can ever take this away. No amount of trauma or loss or false messengers, nothing can take this away. This is our birthright. This is our innate awakened brain, the neurodocking station for deep transcendent relationship. The love of our ancestors, those who truly have our best interests in mind, God, and who we really are. Who we really are.
I actually, the for me, the boy was present that you were talking about earlier, and I was asking myself, like I was feeling love for him, and I was asking myself if how this practice might look for him if he was to close his eyes, to sit down and connect, and and then also, you know, by have said that, how important it is that we have practices so that we can feel that we are loved and that we are connected and that we are not alone and that we are enough. Yeah.
And as you said so beautifully, Maxi, walking the walk of that knowing so that your higher self speaks to the higher self of fellow sisters and brothers, and that their higher selves feel that love and shift. We can go into the coffee shop, we can go into our jobs, knowing that we arrive as higher selves and speak to that deeper being behind the eyes, behind the clothes, behind the mistakes, to the higher self of our colleagues, our families, our partners. And those are deep, deep relationships. That's relational spirituality. And it applies to the homeless gentleman stuck in a terrible situation, and it applies to the person making mistakes in government. It applies to everybody. So that deep relational spirituality, love of neighbor, actually engages the same neurodocking station, the awakened brain, as when we talk to God, when we feel God's presence in our love for one another. That's where we're headed, to your point of both knowing and then living in relationship, community, a renewed society, our higher selves, our higher society.
Wow, so beautiful. How would you describe your own experience with having those experiences? And with you, I mean, it's so obvious that you are living from that place. It's not something that, you know, you've read in a book, like you are that. So how does this connection play out for you in everyday life?
Well, each day I might have a rough sketch of, 2 or 3 things that are planned for the day, and maybe all of them happen or half of them happen or none of them happen, right? And if they all happen, I don't know how they'll be lived and filled out, who will show up, what we'll talk about, what will be discovered. So I view every living moment, every day, every moment as a quest. I don't know what's going to happen, and I certainly don't want it to be based on historical information, what I want, right? Every day is a quest, and so I don't know what'll come, but I know there's deep connection available to every one of us that I feel most of the time in relationship to God and guidance. Now, I'm a human like everyone else, and I make mistakes, and I can feel when I'm not in that lived open relationship. I can feel when on my part, I'm dropping my end of the rope, and it feels scraggly and it feels disconnected, and I'm quick to anger and things are other people's fault, right? So I know when I've let go of the hand of this dynamic lived relationship. And for me, in my path, I go outdoors, irrespective of the season, and I pray. And in my words, my prayers often sound like, "Dear loving God, please may I return to you. Please open my heart that I might be present to you in your great love." And then I'm reconnected and I go back. And of course, everything looks different, and it literally is different. Not only because, yes, we're more polite and all that, but we've re-entered the sacred world.
Yeah. Now, I'm putting on the glasses of someone who is maybe a little bit less versed in those experiences, who is longing for it, like who's longing for connection, who's longing for a deeper purpose. And so I can imagine potentially, or this is also a question for you, in the environment that you're in academically, how do you connect to individuals who are on a complete different sort of point of the spectrum when it comes to spiritual awareness? And how do you navigate this, and how do you start a conversation with those kind of people?
So we are all built with this deep, innate capacity for relational spirituality for one another, and as we feel deep relationship to God or our higher power. And whether or not, well, if we look at science, we know that we're all born with this. We look at a twin study, right? Twins raised together, twins raised apart. How heritable, how inborn is this universal capacity? It is all of ours. By the time we're 30, it is 1/3 innate, 2/3 environmentally cultivated. So our practices, our prayers, our right action, tikkun olam, service, all weigh in. Our spiritual communities, whether they are Sangha, Minyan, Fellowship, Journey Group, all weigh in to shape the spiritual core every day. And as we grow up from being teenagers to going in the world, we select our environment, our outer environment with whom we share our journey, and our inner environment, how we engage within our deep inner being. So to your question, when I'm in a setting that is not necessarily expressive of our deep common awakened awareness. My goal, at times my challenge, my life's work to some extent, is to maintain the deep seat of awakened awareness, to be in relationship with God in all types of situations. And whether or not, and to try to be a source of love, whether or not at the moment I'm feeling particularly loved back. Now, that does not mean put myself in danger. I'm like the first person when something feels bad, get out of the room. You know, if something's dangerous, you're right. That's your inner wisdom. But to be a source through which God, like a fountain, works, every one of us. And very often, it's funny, in my early years at Columbia, there were profoundly spiritual gentlemen who worked in the parking facility where I'd bring my car first thing in the morning. And that was like a fellowship, a faith community, a song of these beautiful gentlemen. They loved their families. You could feel the love and the numinousness in between us. And then I'd go into work, and it was a variable experience, but my goal was to hold being that source of love and to enjoy and relish and embrace and foster in one another moments where it can be deeply shared. Yeah. And maybe that's part of the teaching.
Yes, it's not about the time we spend on the meditation pillow. It's also around like what happens when we get up, what happens when we engage in the world. I so much resonate with that. Like, it's all because I feel that too. I feel the age of Aquarius. I feel really like a big shift in consciousness in like on a global scale. I feel it. I see it. Okay, I might be also in a sort of a bubble of people who are really like vibrating on a similar frequency, but and that's all. And what I want to say is that it comes along with some sort of like spiritual bypassing as well, or like the potential for that, you know, because it is so easy to light up some candles and say I'm spiritual. You are, I guess we all are, but then at the same time, you know, not bringing this to the world, not bringing this into relationships, but really letting our lower self sort of like engage with us and with other people, and then therefore really conflicts are arising and stuff. And so
take torch into the public square, whether that is the classroom or the boardroom or the media platform, the spiritual torch shines. And when you bring your deep spiritual open heart, your authentic voice of spiritual awareness, your lived outward practice of spiritual values, others feel enlivened and resonant to do the same. So I would actually say it's incredibly important. It's beyond words. It is so important to walk into places where it may not be the norm to voice spiritual, transcendent language or share a practice, and offer it open-handedly. Because if you don't, it may not happen. It is not yet perhaps spiritually ignited in voice, in practice, in values. That means the work needs to be done. So that doesn't mean, oh, they're the, unenlightened people who live in darkness. No, that means that they're built to be spiritual beings too, as we come out of an ice age, 100-year ice age of silencing of our deep spiritual voice. And when you speak truthfully, you enliven and empower all those around you in the media, in the paper, in the boardroom to do the same. I've had that experience. I've had that experience for places like an investment house will have me come in and I'll share some of these practices. And there are tears in the eyes of the vice president and their top investors. I'm not getting paid for this. I didn't. This is about awakening. And all that is seen and done by those leaders to their families, to their employees, will shift into the field of sacred consciousness. We are all beacons of exponentiating, probably a function more powerful than that, illumination, when God works through us and we are humble and just show up and speak. If you don't speak, it may never be said. If you don't walk the walk and bring in the torch, what if that space is never illuminated and the hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who are touched by that exponentiating wave will be enlivened if you walk and speak the truth?
Wow, so beautiful. Yeah, I could really talk to you for so much more, and around so much more. Trying to be really respectful of your time. I have three a little bit shorter questions toward the end, and one of them is, because we've touched on it a couple of times, but just to turn people on to your experience and what you've shared already in Awakened Brain. Like what can we expect for people who haven't read it, and why should they get on it? What does it do?
The Awakened Brain is built for your path. It is shared not only through the language of science, it is also shared through the language of lived spiritual journey, complete with the struggles and the shut red doors and the moments of incredible pain. It shows us that every one of us is actually buoyed up by this great force, this wave of life, and that we are here for each other. You are loved, you are held, you are guided, and you are never alone. I want you to flourish in the glory of your true spiritual path.
Beautiful.
I've already been paid. Not making money if you buy the book. I really want you to have I want you to have the most glorious life.
Yeah, it's coming from the heart, and people can tell. Like we're speaking through a screen, but like it's arriving. What are you proud of?
Oh, wow. If I may, I guess I didn't do the work. God did the work. I'm proud I got out of the way, and that I have 3 children who live in relationship to God, whatever their words may be. And they have their own words.
Wow. Yeah. Even like with everything that you shared in the beginning, that's even more powerful. Wow. And when was the last time you did something courageous?
Ooh, I love that question. I think of courage actually as awareness of the buoyancy, that we are being carried, that we are being guided. So I guess that every day is an act of total free fall surrender into God's arms, into the guidance of what comes today. As I said, I don't know where today will go, but what is sure and steady is a deep stance of quest and a certain relationship, a transcendent relationship with who I call God, your higher power.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Speaking with me today.
It's such an honor and a joy. And thank you for being a wellspring, a source through which God work.
Thank you. I appreciate you deeply.